Hey YouTube, this here is a Kimber Ultra Cary II 3-inch 1911 pistol, and today I want to attempt to disassemble this as far as I could take it, just to clean out all the small parts inside. I've always just did a field strip on it and clean the slide out and all just around the frame and all that, but I want to take it apart to clean all the little bits and pieces down in the frame and in the slide. So let's get to it. Let's try to take this thing apart. First thing we're gonna do is make sure the pistol is safe, nothing in the magazine, and of course, nothing in the chamber. We're gonna go ahead and lock it back. This here is a little tool from NDZ that goes ahead and you just put it on the guide rod and it'll stop the slide right where it needs to stop. Just slides on like so. Yeah. There we go. When you drop the slide, it just pops out like so. This thing comes on. You can see this is a little bit dirty. Slide has some oil on it. There's a little bit of dirt on it. The spring comes out like this. I'm not going to do anything with the guide rod on the spring. I'm just going to leave it as that. Take the barrel off. Then we're going to turn our attention to this bad boy. This is the frame here. Before I take this frame apart, one of the things that you should notice is that when the grip safety is depressed, this little plunger here comes up. This little plunger releases the firing pin safety on the slide right here. It releases that. Sometimes when these Kimbers get real dirty, that doesn't activate or actuate correctly, and you have to squeeze the grip safety really hard to release that firing pin safety so the hammer could actually drop. We're going to clean it out and make sure that none of that happens on this pistol, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is remove the grips. And I think this is a 3/32 Allen. Yep, here we go. One of the things that I should note is I've never taken this apart this much. This is the first for me, and I just read on how to do it, and I'm about to try it. Here's the grips out of the way. One of the things that's really annoying is on this one, the little nut that should be on the frame actually got stuck on the screw. I'm going to try to get it off later on. So I don't have a punch block, but I have this piece of wood with a hole in it that I use for another project. I'm just going to use that to help me out here. We're just going to drive this pin out towards the right. If you have the barrel of the gun facing forward, we're just going to drive this out towards the right. That's the only direction it could go out of. And we just use this here is I guess this is a nylon mallet. We just go ahead and that comes out relatively easy. We put punch in there. And there we go. Here's the pin. And with the punch in there, just press down to relieve some of the tension. And this mainspring housing just slides right out. Next, we're going to try to remove this safety. So to remove this safety, they say make sure that this is aligned like this. We're going to have to press this plunger back towards the front of the gun and slide the safety. Then you could start wiggling the safety, I think. Never done this before, so hopefully it doesn't blow up on me. Here we go. And this just comes out. Beaver tail comes out. So does the main spring. And here's the hammer. So now we also have the hammer pin, which is right here. And that should slide out relatively easy without even beating it out. Here's the plunger. For the safety, plunger and spring. Man, this is all twisted up. Hopefully that's alright. Well, the hammer pin goes in one direction. It just falls right out just like that. There's the hammer. The hammer comes right out like that. So now the next thing to take out would be the sear. This is the seer pin. And in here, there's a sear, there's a rocker, and then there's this little thing I showed you before that comes out of that little piece here. That's our little safety. Just gonna use a smaller punch for that one. And just comes out. And sometimes this is difficult to put back the right way. Here is the rocker. This is the little safety pin. And the sear seems to be stuck in there. Here's the sear. And we're almost done with taking this apart now. So let me just put these over here so I know what they are. Then the next thing to do is to take this is the mag release. Take that out, and once we take that out, then the trigger should come right out. So we need a small Allen, and I hope I remember which way to rotate this. I think you press a little bit. And it comes right out. There we go. Comes right out. You could actually take this apart and remove the spring and all that, but we're not going to do all that. Should just slide all the way back out. And if you notice, this thing is adjustable. There we go. This thing, the frame fully disassembled. And you should note that this frame is aluminum. There's no checkering or anything. This is, for the most part, the entry-level Kimber. So now the slide. Let's go ahead and take this slide apart. So under the slide, this here is the safety pin, or the firing pin safety release. I think you got to push up on this thing, push down on the firing pin, and slide the plate out. And I think the firing pin should stay in place. Yeah, there we go. Here's the plate. And I think, yeah, push the firing pin down again, depress the safety, and here comes the pin and the spring. There we go, pin and the spring. And this could actually be separated and cleaned out. Man, this is really dirty in here. The last thing to do is to take the extractor out, and there's the extractor. There's the front of the extractor right here. Just push it rearwards, and you gotta wiggle this thing out a little bit, and there's the extractor, and that's extremely dirty too. Now we could totally scrub this thing out. Now, the last thing to take out of this thing would be this firing pin safety. To take that out, you actually have to take the rear side out, and to push the rear side out is terribly hard. You have to undo the screw in the middle there, the set screw, and push the thing out towards the direction of the ejection port. But then if you're going to put it back on, you got to make sure you line it up correctly and all that. We're not going to do that. We're just going to take this thing now and clean every single little part of this, and then we're going to reassemble. I'm not going to show you how I clean it all out. Just know that I am going to clean it out, lube it up good, and then we're going to reassemble it. Alright, time to reassemble this thing. It's nice and clean now. I cleaned out all the parts. So let's go ahead and try to reassemble this thing. Again, this is the first time I'm doing this, so we hope we get it right. We got to put the extractor back in, a little bit of wiggling. It goes back in there just the way it should. We put the spring over the firing pin and depressing the safety. We're going to need to use a punch. Go ahead and capture that firing pin back in, and then we're going to slide the back plate back in. And sliding this plate in, we got to do the same thing like we did before. We're going to have to depress this bad boy. Oh crap, we're going to have to press this. Okay, after a little bit of fighting with this, I finally got it in. There we go, firing pin in. Safety good, doesn't come out. Extractor in. Just wipe some of the oil off my hands. All for that. Slide reassembled, clean. Before we put it together, we'll actually put a little bit of lube on it. Let's go ahead and put the frame back together. You notice that the trigger is really nice and smooth for the most part, so you don't really have to do anything with it. I don't think we need to lube this. When you put it in, you just need to make sure the bevel is at the same angle as the grip. So we're just going to put it in, and it slides right in the same little spot. And we're going to go ahead and put this in, and we're going to have to do the exact same thing with it. Turn this thing a little bit. I always forget which way. And there we go. Mag release. Mag release is in. Okay. Mag release is in. So then the next bit becomes really tricky when we got to put the rocker, sear, and this little plunger assembly back together. So here comes the hardest part of this entire thing, right? This is the little safety, and hopefully you could see it on camera, but there are two holes here, and the safety has to go through the smaller hole, and there's only one way the safety could go. So you got to drop it down just in the right spot, and it'll go through there before we put the sear and the rocker assembly in place. So again, I've never done this, just read about it. So let's see. Oops, went in the wrong hole. I'm going to hold my finger on this little safety so that you can see it's coming through the hole. And I don't know if you could see it down in there, if this would show up on camera. But here it is right down there. The next part is the sear and the rocker assembly. So the sear and the rocker assembly, this flat part here goes against the hammer bar when it's in the frame like so. And the rocker could only go one way over it, like so. If you try it any other way, it won't work. If you try it any other way, it just won't line up, if you see what I mean. So the rocker goes on top of it like so, and the sear goes in the bigger hole on the frame, and is sometimes good at this point to have a smaller punch to help line it up. Alright, with the sear assembly in place, now this is really difficult, right? And the flat part of the sear rests on our hammer bar that goes behind this little hammer thing here. Then I put a punch in there to hold it in place, and then just slide the pin in. It should just slide right on in. A little bit of wiggling. Alright, and there we go. After struggling a little bit, there's the sear and safety assembly. When the safety assembly moves, you can see that little thing reaches up there and pokes up in there, and that's what triggers this thing on the slide right here. All right, then we got to put the plunger in for the safety, and that surprised me. That spring was twisted up as much as it was, but here it is. It just goes in like that. Okay, trying to get the mainspring in. You realize, and mainspring, there's this little longer one, and it's supposed to go and overlap on this sear assembly, and the bottom part here is supposed to clip in to this one little hole here. Let's try it. There we go. That's it. And just to hold it all in place before we actually reassemble this housing, we're just going to slide this thing in a little bit. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. Shoot. And just to keep a little bit of tension on this thing while we put the beaver tail back in and all the other pieces in. So we're going to put the hammer in. And we got to make sure that we have this thing lined up here. Put the hammer in. We might have to pull this out a little bit just to make it easier. And you should be able to see straight through once this thing is lined up. When it's lined up, we're just going to go ahead and push the pin all the way through. Might be able to see the hole there and see it lined up. And just pop that in. And that's in place there. Now we're going to put this grip safety in. And I think it just falls in like so. And uses the safety. Now there's a trick to this thing here because it has to line back up right here, so we gotta push this little plunger forward. Alright, we gotta push this little plunger forward while we drop this thing, which is always gonna be tricky. Just to press the plunger here, and this should just fall right into place, like so. Alright, so there's your safety. Next thing to do is to go ahead and tighten this up. Alright, there we go. That's in place. Let's see if this works fine. Ooh, didn't want safety on. When we press this, we should actually see this little plunger go up. If you could probably see it right there, right here, and that is what releases the firing pin safety on this thing. So important. Remember at the start of this video, this little nut here was on this screw. All I did was run it up, get it nice and tight in there, and back the screw out. And it came right out as it should. Alright, now time to lube this thing up. There's still a little bit of dirt here. Time to lube this thing up and reassemble it. Alright, here it is, fully reassembled. Sliding nice and smooth. Put the magazine in and hammer falls nicely. I don't really like to dry fire it. What we are going to do is put some snap caps in there and make sure it's cycled through pretty nicely. Okay, snap caps in. Works as it should. I hope you like this video. If you do, please hit subscribe. Thank you very much for being patient with me. This was the first time that I did this. I appreciate you subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one. God bless.